land of the Kangaroo, the R62 road stretches away to the horizon, between distant koppies, deep into purple mountains. Here, the wide open land holds a peace, a quiet stillness which speaks to the spirit. There's time to breathe and to think and to heal. And under an ocean of slow blue sky, it seems that the dreams of our hearts can become real. Just outside the small village of Barrydale, homeopath Dr. Peter Frazer and his wife Nola Frazer retired to their farm named the Manger, which means new beginnings or second chances. Nestling into the soft old foothills of the Lungaberg Mountains, the Manger has witnessed a dream unfold, one which has touched the lives of many animals and people. Nola's photo album tells the beginning of the tale. One day, a baby baboon was brought to us. He was terrified. His mother had been shot on a neighboring farm, and he had been found clinging to her body. He simply captured our hearts, and there and then we made a decision to care for him, and we named him Matthew, which means gift from God. Of course, we had never looked after a baby baboon before, so there were many sleepless nights and early mornings. And soon after Matthew, another 2 baboons arrived, Beth and Joshua, and in those days we'd take the 3 baboons walking out on the open land next to our property. We made a promise to Matthew that we'd one day return him to the wild. At that time, we had no idea what that would entail, but it was a turning point for his life and for ours. In order to continue caring for the baboons, the Frazers, with great determination and many phone calls, undertook the lengthy legal process of opening an animal rehabilitation center, and eventually Cape Crow, the Cape Center for Rehabilitation of Wildlife, was officially established in May 2001. It's because of Cape Crow that numerous creatures have arrived at the Manger. All have received a safe haven for body and spirit to heal before final release back into their natural wild environment. But for Peter and Nola, Cape Crow's special project is the care and rehabilitation of chacma baboons. They'll take in abandoned or injured infants, confiscated farm pets, even wild baboons. Each one has their own story of trauma and loss. 3-year-old Amadeus was kept as a farm pet. Although he was loved by his previous owners, he was enclosed in a cramped cage and walked only occasionally. Today he enjoys the wide open space of an open-topped enclosure with a troop that he can belong to. Bartholomew's a wild baboon who was seriously injured in a troop fight. He was unable to stand and would normally have been euthanized, but local vets contacted the Frazers, who immediately agreed to fetch him. Bartholomew received shelter and time to heal, and within 2 months he was standing and released back into his troop. Baby Joseph arrived with terrible bite wounds on his skull as a result of troop infanticide. With the help of local veterinarian Dr. Norman, Peter and Nola made sure he received 24-hour medical care and treatment. Surrounded by such tenacious love, Joseph pulled through and survived against all odds. Ellie is a wild baboon who was shot. Due to her injuries, she had to have her leg amputated and also lost her unborn baby. While she recovered at the Manger, she received homeopathic treatment and laser and magnetic therapy. When she was eventually released back into her troop, she became a minor celebrity in the Cape Town newspapers. Although physical care is paramount at the Manger, it's very important that rehabilitation occurs holistically and involves social integration. Here, the process of troop formation is slow, taking between 5 and 8 years. After all, these are orphaned individuals who've come together through unnatural circumstances, and they've had to learn their social skills. Baby Matthew is now a full-grown, powerful alpha male who leads a troop of 18 baboons. They occupy an open-topped electrified enclosure where they have access to shelter and also receive food twice a day. Before full rehabilitation can take place, a baboon troop needs to be well integrated, and in the complex social world of baboons, few events bond a troop more powerfully than the birth of an infant. Over the last 3 years, Matthew's troop has experienced 6 natural births. Here, Matthew's young son, little Elo Harpy, shows a telltale yellow eyebrow that develops at around 3 months. He's a confident youngster, the son of an alpha male, and he nestles alongside Matthew as often as he can, or else tries to escape the watchful eye of his mother. But it's the aspect of interspecies communication that makes Cape Crow particularly unique. Peter describes it as being a bit like horse whispering or baboon whispering. And it was the arrival of Joshua Baboon that brought to the Manger a greater awareness of animal consciousness. And now many of the baboons here communicate telepathically with Peter and other animal communicators. So when Peter and Nola need to make decisions involving the baboons, they'll ask each animal involved. It's about respecting the truth of an individual's journey, says Peter. In a way, we're just guardians here. It's the baboons who tell us what to do, and it's really Joshua who's director of operations. But the love and interconnectedness which is so present at the Manger is assisted by another source, a labyrinth surrounded by pink rose quartz and karoo piece. A labyrinth is an ancient design based on sacred geometry, and it holds a deep energy and symbolism. The single path winds back and forth upon itself and leads or guides a person into a meditative space. In Afrikaans, it's known as a bidpaadjie or prayer path, and many people come here to walk the labyrinth, perhaps even in the company of a wild black-backed jackal. When baby Matthew arrived, Peter and Nola had made a firm promise to one day release him into the wild. But with no land or resources or expertise, it was hard to foresee how this could be. So it was with a sense of wonder when in 2004, 356 hectares of land adjacent to the Manger became available to purchase. This was the very self-same land which Peter and Nola had walked with 3 young baboons years earlier. This beautiful land of the Klein Karoo has ochre rocks and shale koppies rich with indigenous fynbos. There are succulent karoo plants here, vibrant and colourful, and creamy crassula and voluptuous vechies snuggled between rocks, whilst the arms of the aloes seem to cup the sunlight in pools of sacred green, and everything is unrestrained and wild and windswept. And it is this beautiful land, this prime baboon habitat, that was named Matthew's Paradise, for it's here that Matthew's troop will be the first to undertake the next phase of rehabilitation, a troop relocation into a 5-hectare enclosure. During this beginning stage of rewilding, the animals will receive support feeding and have sleep sites or basic shelter. Once their survival skills and wild instincts are well established, the troop will be relocated into a larger 100-hectare enclosure, but this time without shelter or feeding. Some dreams can be as delicate as a spider's web. Although they're supported by the universe, they still require an enormous effort to build. And even though Matthew's Paradise became available, it's taken over 2 years to prepare the enclosures for the next phase of rehabilitation. Kilometers of high-tensile livestock fencing have had to be laid around the perimeter of the property and the smaller enclosures within. And in this rugged terrain, every meter has had to be won through hard work and sweat. Each post, each roll of wire, each bag of cement is transported to the high ground of Matthew's Paradise and then manually dug, winched, nailed, and cemented. Nothing is left behind that might injure an animal. Strand after strand of electric wiring has been run along both the inside and the outside of the enclosures to keep rehabilitation baboons in and keep out wild baboons and leopard. Sleep sites have been built to give the animals basic shelter during their partial rehabilitation, and at every stage the SPCA and the Cape Nature organizations have been involved and consulted. In this dry land, water is a precious commodity, and a solar-powered borehole maximizes the Karoo sunlight hours. But things don't always work to plan, and a faulty pump has had to be winched up and replaced. It's another delay, and yet another problem which has had to be dealt with. But slowly, Matthew's release has transformed from a dream into a reality. Life must carry on while dreams gestate, and another day dawns at the Manger. Animals begin to stir in the early morning light and come down from their roost, and some just blink their eyelids. It's time for food, and there are over 80 baboons and other small animals to be fed. A staple diet of potatoes and fresh vegetables is supplemented with seasonal fruit. Peter remarks wryly that the baboons here are better fed than some people. It's a daily commitment which has absorbed weekends and holidays and years. But as Nola said, the commitment's not a burden when it's given out of love. The lesson has been about service, about moving out of the head and working from the heart. After feeding the animals, Peter quads up to Matthew's Paradise to sort out a problem with the electric fencing, whilst the Cape Crow staff discuss the day's tasks. The enclosures require cleaning and fresh water, and straw must be replenished. Twice a day, Nola spends quality time with the very little ones. At this age, these abandoned infants aren't robust enough to interact with the troop without the protection of a parent. So it's very important that they experience the physical and emotional stability of a safe mother figure. Of course, there are always visitors, and it's their donations and sponsorships which carry this project. And although everyone is enchanted by the sight of these babies, Peter and Nola keep human contact to an absolute minimum. Part of daily life at the Manger is dealing with the many rescue cases that come in unexpectedly. Baby Wilbur was found on the body of his dead mother, who was killed by a motor vehicle. Because of head injuries sustained in the accident, Wilbur's too frail to be kept with the other boisterous infants, so Nola keeps a watchful eye over him until he's stronger. Later, a secretary bird is released. A week ago, this bird was brought to the Manger by concerned police, who had driven over 50 kilometers after rescuing it from being stoned by local children. The bird was bloodied and in shock, and it's evident that there's enormous support amongst the community for the work being done here. In the afternoons, it's time to do the bottle run for the older youngsters who are not yet integrated into troop. At this stage, they still get a daily bottle with their last meal. They don't know it yet, but their next phase of rehabilitation will integrate them into adult troop in open-topped enclosures, where they won't receive any human contact. But until then, there's much greedy suckling as they race through their bottles to vie for the best bits of food. Young Camilla was rescued from a very early age, and although she's now with the group of juveniles, she relishes this time with Peter and Nola. Raising eyebrows and smacking lips are typical baboon signs of greeting and affection, which Camilla noisily lavishes upon Peter, chattering all the while. Quite honestly, it's hard to say who enjoys the grooming session more. And finally, it's evening hour with the babies as the Karoo evening tiptoes closer. Although this is still work, it's a time when baby Margie and Mascot can play freely, safe in the presence of their alpha male and female. It's critical that these orphaned infants foster an instinct of group security and protection, and more importantly, know who to run to if there's cause for alarm. But the fear is soon forgotten, and the compelling lure of shoelaces reasserts itself. Nothing escapes these bright, alert eyes and quick, furious fingers. And after all these years, Nola still finds herself and giggles at the antics these little ones can get up to. But it seems that someone's nose is a little out of joint with all the attention the babies are getting. At last, it's the end of a busy day, and Pete turns his hand to healing of a different sort. After all, one does have to keep up one's reputation for the best Irish coffee in town. Whilst outside, night closes in on the land, and the silence of the Karoo fills with stars and the Labyrinth with blue dreams and magic. Sometimes on quiet afternoons, the light rests golden on the Langeberg Mountains. Then Peter and Nola take the babies up to Matthew's paradise, in much the same way as they did with Matthew and Beth and Joshua 8 years ago. Who would have thought, Nola reflects, that this dream would unfold, all because a baby baboon arrived on our doorstep, where there were no resources, funding and donations have been provided. Where there was no knowledge, a thriving rehabilitation centre now exists. Where there were no skills, volunteers arrived from a far field as Israel, Australia and America. And where there was no land, well, Matthew's paradise was given. It's been a journey we could never have imagined. The late afternoon shadows lengthen and it's time to drive back. By now the babies are asleep, but hopefully the scent of wild fynbos and love and freedom will be in their dreams forever.